Hello, welcome to Unlocking Buddhism. Have you ever stopped to think, who's really driving all of this? Who moves the world? I'm not talking about politics or celebrities or technology. I'm talking about another force, something that's much closer to us than it seems. Something that starts in our chest, runs through our minds, and somehow changes everything around us. Because think about it, if you wake up in a bad mood, how's your day gonna go? If you argue with someone, what happens to the vibe around you? And if you treat someone with kindness, how do they respond? Exactly. Maybe the world isn't that messed up. Maybe it's just constantly reacting to what we put into it. By the way, do you agree the world reflects what we put into it? Drop a yes or no in the comments. I'd love to hear your take. And that's what we're here to talk about. But no overthinking, no fluff. Just like a real conversation, the kind even a kid can understand. Because deep down, the truth is simple. We're the ones who make it complicated. So come with me. Let's find out, together, what really moves the world. There's one thing no one can deny. The world is full of problems. It always has been. And as much as we'd like to believe otherwise, it probably always will be. That might sound pessimistic at first, but hold on. The point here isn't to bring you down. It's actually the opposite. It just works according to its own rules. And those rules, even when they seem unfair, are actually pretty simple. One of them is cause and effect. Everything that happens has a reason. Nothing comes out of nowhere. It's like a chain reaction. You toss a pebble into a lake and the ripples spread. If we see violence, pain, suffering, it's because something caused that beforehand. And the craziest part? Most of those causes come from tiny, everyday things we don't even notice. But then there's us humans, full of wants and wishes, acting like the world should revolve around us. Take this example. It's hot. It's summer. The sun's blazing. The humidity is high. As if the universe should stop everything just to please them. The world doesn't revolve around us, and it shouldn't. Even so, we keep trying to control things way beyond our reach, not realizing everything follows forces way bigger than our own desires. It's the same with the world's problems. But if we look closer, we'll see all the conditions were there for it to happen. And if they were, then the outcome was inevitable. We want peace, harmony, justice, but we don't want to change what's actually causing the opposite. It's like expecting a thorn bush to grow flowers. It's not gonna happen. What's worse, we keep trying to fix things from the wrong side. Like someone with an itch on their head but scratching their arm instead. It's useless. The problem is somewhere else. And this applies to everything, from road rage to major global conflicts. We don't understand where the root of the problem is. And because we don't understand it, we keep making the same mistakes. A lot of people want the explanation for all this to be super complex, filled with theories and arguments. But deep down, the truth is simple, way too simple. And that's exactly what makes it uncomfortable. Because admitting that things are obvious means admitting that maybe we just didn't want to see it before. Now, if all of this is so obvious, if the logic of cause and effect is everywhere, why do so many people still not see it? Simple, because we don't want to see it. Weird, right? The truth is right there, clear as day. But instead of facing it, we choose to look away. We rationalize, explain, justify, come up with 1,000 reasons, all just to avoid confronting the uncomfortable simplicity of the truth. And why is that? Because facing it means taking responsibility. And the truth is, a lot of people would rather stay confused than actually change. Admitting you're part of the problem hurts, but that's also where the power to become part of the solution is born. Instead, we overcomplicate everything. We want fancy explanations, complex theories, big words. It's like if something's too simple, it can't be right. As if truth needed a PhD badge to be taken seriously. But the truth doesn't need to be pretty or difficult. It just needs to be seen. And truly seeing it takes courage. Courage to admit that maybe what we always believed was wrong. That behavior we thought was normal might actually be harmful. That thought that seemed harmless is actually feeding violence in the world, even in subtle ways. It's painful to realize that. And that's exactly why so many people run from simplicity. A simple example: someone who sees themselves as a good person, but constantly gossips, judges, and puts others down behind their backs. That same person goes online to complain about violence, intolerance, injustice. But they can't see that the same energy fueling global conflict is the same one they're feeding through their everyday words. The problem is, we only notice evil when it's loud, obvious, aggressive. But the root of that evil is born in small acts, tiny reactions, unquestioned beliefs that have become part of our routine. It's like expecting a sweet fruit to grow from a tree you water every day with anger, fear, pride, and selfishness. Not gonna happen. And when someone points this out, clearly, simply, the first reaction is usually denial, because hearing that you're contributing to the chaos, even without meaning to, that's hard. But it's also freeing, and that realization changes everything, because you stop fighting the world, and you start looking within. You begin to see that external conflicts reflect internal ones, that the rush in the world mirrors your own rush, that other people's impatience reflects your own, that fear, anger, rejection, frustration, all the things you see out there, also live in you. That simple question starts opening doors, and with time, you realize that the change you've been waiting for in the world, it's not coming from the outside. It begins the moment you stop reacting, stop pointing fingers, stop running, and start seeing what's always been there but you kept avoiding. And that's when the world starts to flip inside out. Or better yet, that's when it starts to turn right side up for the very first time. You know what's one of the biggest obstacles to seeing everything we've been talking about? Our own mind. Yep, the mind, the same one that helps us reason, plan, remember, imagine, is also the main one responsible for confusing us, distracting us, and making us suffer. It talks non-stop. It comments, judges, compares, complains. The moment you wake up, it's already running, and it only stops, if it stops when you sleep. Sometimes not even then. Have you noticed how hard it is to just be in silence, even for a few seconds? The mind keeps pulling thought after thought, like an endless chain. It's like a dog chasing its own tail. And the wildest part? But really, we're just going in circles. Ever caught yourself replaying a situation from the past for hours? Or creating a bunch of future scenarios in your head about something that hasn't even happened yet? That's it. One thought leads to another, which leads to another, and then right back to where it all started. It's like trying to clean a room by throwing dust in the air. You get agitated, exhausted, tangled in the mess, but nothing gets resolved. You just stir up more dust. You're spinning in your own chaos. And the worst part, we get used to that noise. We think it's normal to live like this. But really, we're just feeding the confusion. That's why learning to quiet the mind is so powerful. And no, it's not about turning your brain off. It's not about becoming a monk on a mountaintop. Silencing the mind, first and foremost, is about not identifying with every thought that pops up. It's about observing instead of reacting. At first, it feels impossible. The mind throws a tantrum. It doesn't like losing the spotlight. It'll try to drag you back in with to-do lists, old memories, future worries. But if you stay, if you breathe, if you just watch, something starts to shift. The mental mud begins to settle, like a glass of murky water. If you just leave it alone, the dirt sinks, and the water clears. And then, for the first time, you see clearly. You see where your anger comes from. You see the true source of your anxiety. You see how you've been creating problems that don't even exist yet. And more than that, you realize you don't have to react. You don't have to believe everything you think. You have a choice. You can watch your thoughts like clouds passing in the sky. That's where freedom begins. That's when life starts to change. Because at the root, suffering is born from blind identification with thoughts. When you confuse yourself with your thoughts, you live at the mercy of the mind. And the mind, on its own, doesn't know the way. It repeats, it imitates, it protects itself, but it doesn't know what silence is. It doesn't know presence. It doesn't know peace. Those things can't be explained. They can only be experienced, and that only happens in silence. And here, silence isn't the absence of sound, it's the presence of you. It's being fully here now, without needing to fix anything, prove anything, or escape anything. In that space, you discover that truth is simple, that clarity doesn't shout. It whispers. That's the noise we carry inside. That's the static that keeps us from seeing that life is already happening, right here, and that the world starts to change. When we stop spinning and start seeing, there's a kind of illusion that's harder to spot than any other, the one that comes disguised as truth. And that's exactly where the intellectual ego lives. It's the voice that says, "Now you know." It doesn't shout or make a scene. It whispers, politely, with fancy words, cultured references, a calm voice. It dresses like wisdom, but deep down, it's fueled by pride. And the most dangerous part, it lives inside us. Inside me, inside you, inside anyone who's ever felt special for understanding more than others. The intellectual ego is subtle. It doesn't tell you to do something reckless. It invites you to look good, to speak properly, to have opinions, to appear sensible, balanced, aware. But deep down, it craves applause. It wants validation. It wants control. And it hits you. It makes sense. But instead of diving into the silence and actually observing, the ego jumps ahead. Ah yes, this is meditation. This is mindfulness. I read about this in that book. And now you're not living the teaching. You're filing it away in a mental drawer with the right labels. You catalog, you comment, you teach, but you live very little. That's where the game begins. You start using knowledge as an identity. You go to meetups, join groups, share inspiring quotes on social media. But deep down, you're not trying to understand more. You're trying to confirm who you already believe you are, an evolved person, and all of it with the best of intentions. The intellectual ego doesn't look arrogant. It looks wise. It looks balanced. But it's always comparing. It's an ego dressed as a teacher, but it's still ego. As long as you're busy appearing conscious, you're not truly conscious. You're performing. And the saddest part, the more knowledge you accumulate, the harder it becomes to realize you're trapped. Because knowing gives a kind of addictive pleasure. It gives a sweet sense of superiority. But that sweetness is toxic, because it stops you from diving into not knowing. And it's in not knowing that true seeing begins. When someone says something simple, like, "If you're present, everything changes," the intellectual ego rolls its eyes. It feels let down. It wanted something deeper, more complex. But here's the thing. A true wise person isn't the one who speaks in riddles. It's the one who changes the world with a few words, or even with silence. Because they're not trying to convince you. They're simply showing you what they've lived. Have you ever seen a small child explain how they feel? They don't have fancy vocabulary, but you understand them because they're honest. And honesty is what touches people. It's what transforms. It's what holds truth. When someone speaks from a clean place, you feel it. It doesn't have to sound pretty. It just has to be real. That's why, so often, what shakes us isn't the complexity of what we hear. It's the simplicity. It's realizing that something so small, so direct, so obvious, stood right in front of us for years, and we never saw it. That hurts. It hurts because it challenges the image we built of ourselves. It hurts because we realize we didn't know as much as we thought. But also, it frees us. It frees us because, finally, we can stop pretending and just be human. Human in progress. Human. Honest. Human. Humble. That's the beginning of real wisdom. It doesn't need titles, or likes, or followers. It only needs one thing, inner honesty. The courage to say, "I don't know everything." And that, just that, already changes the world. If you've made it this far, you've probably realized that much of what we call the world's problems actually begins within ourselves. And the answer, simple, direct, powerful, is this: silence. But don't get it twisted. Silence here doesn't mean just shutting your mouth. It means going quiet on the inside. It's the silence that comes when you stop reacting on autopilot, when you start watching your own mind without getting pulled into it. It's that moment, right in the middle of the noise, where you simply breathe and observe. But this kind of silence, it's not popular. It doesn't get likes. It doesn't show up on your feed. It doesn't come with ambient music and an Instagram filter. It's raw, naked, uncomfortable at first, because true silence takes away your crutches. It removes the background noise we use to avoid feeling. It cuts through the overthinking we use to avoid looking. It strips away the distractions we use to avoid facing what's calling for change. It's like turning off the lights in a theater. Suddenly, you stop seeing the special effects, and you start seeing the backstage. At first, that's scary, because in silence, everything shows up. The hidden anxiety, the anger you've stuffed down, the neediness dressed up as independence. And if you have the courage to not run away, you'll see. This isn't a breakdown. It's the beginning of healing. Silence is a kind of mirror, a clean one, where you finally see what's really there. No filters, no makeup, no storyline. Just you, with all that you are. And in that meeting, something is born that no book can give you. Authenticity. Because when you stop, go quiet, breathe, and really observe, you begin to uncover a whole new kind of intelligence. Not the one that stores answers, but the one that listens to the questions. The one that doesn't need to control everything to feel peace. That's the beginning of a whole new way of relating to life. Do you still feel anger, fear, sadness? Of course, but now you see them arriving. And instead of becoming the emotion, you hold space for it. You observe it. You let it pass, like watching a storm from the window, knowing it will pass. That changes everything, because you stop living in conflict with your experience. And when that inner war ends, the world outside feels less threatening. You don't need to prove so much, or defend so much, or win arguments, or show off how much you know. You start living from a quieter place, a more present place, a more honest place. And then, silence becomes a practice, not just in meditation, but in life. Silence is when you truly listen, without already preparing your reply. Silence is when you feel anger, but wait before you act. Silence is when you see a mistake and choose to guide with compassion instead of correcting with superiority. Silence is when you accept that you don't have all the answers, and that's okay. And little by little, this changes everything, because the peace you cultivate inside begins to spill outward, in the way you speak, in the tone you use, in the presence you carry. You become someone who, just by being around, brings a little more calm. And in the world we live in today, that is a revolution. No applause needed. No enlightened person sign required. That is the silence that transforms. That is the beginning of real change. And that's why it moves the world, even when no one's watching. So, in the end, what is it that really moves the world? It's not politicians. It's not technology. It's not money. Not even the big speeches on big stages. What really moves the world are the small, invisible decisions we make. When no one's watching, it's when you could yell, but you choose to breathe. It's when you could judge, but you decide to listen. It's when you feel anger, but you don't let it drive your response. It's when you silently observe something that used to turn into a fight and choose to act differently. Those choices change the world, not with noise, not under spotlights, but from the inside out, one choice at a time. Because the world is like a mirror. It reflects what we carry inside. If there's war within, there will be war outside. If there's peace within, peace begins to show up around us. So what moves the world? A regular person, on an ordinary day, who decides to break a pattern, who decides to quiet the ego, who decides to observe instead of react, who, even while afraid, chooses awareness. And that person can be you. You don't need to become a guru. You don't need to master meditation. You don't need to give it all up and go live on a mountaintop. You can start with 30 seconds of silence, a moment of pause, an honest look inward, and that's enough. Because the biggest change doesn't come from something huge. It comes from the simple, lived with truth. If you've listened this far, it's because a part of you already knows this, already feels that the outside world won't change until something shifts inside. And maybe, just maybe, That shift is already happening now. So if this message meant something to you, here's my invitation. Leave a like. It shows that this kind of message matters. Subscribe to the channel if you want to keep walking this path with me, and share this video with someone. Just one person, the one you thought of while watching, because maybe they need to pause too, to breathe, and to remember the world only changes when we change first. And that's why silence, yes, silence, is what moves the world.